Once upon a time, a six-fingered man once said, "If you haven't got your how, then you haven't got anything." I'm your host, Leah.
I think I'm Phil.
And I'm Steve. Today we're going to look at some really weird remedies and peculiar medicine.
So what's up, Doc?
If you have an appetite for the strange and bizarre, then pull up a chair and grab a spoon for another intriguing serving of Remnant Stew. Remnant Stew is gluten-free, organic, made from all natural, free-range ingredients, and guaranteed to provide the recommended daily serving of curiosity.
Well, now, before we jump into our weird medicine, it's time to take a look at the calendar and see what holidays are coming up. And even before we jump into our holidays, I'd like to play a little music and see if you can tell me what this makes you think of.
Okay.
The Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Harlem Globetrotters. Because this Friday, January 7th, is Harlem Globetrotter Day.
Sweet.
Yay. Harlem Globetrotter Day marks the fact that Abe Saperstein, Saperstein, founded the Harlem Globetrotters basketball team way back in 1926.
Wow.
So they're 96 years old now coming up. They were initially known as the Savoy Big Five after the famous Savoy Ballroom in Chicago, where they held their first performance. Now, I didn't realize this. The Harlem Globetrotters are actually not from Harlem.
Oh.
They're actually from the south side of Chicago. The original team members were all African Americans from Chicago's south side, and they never even played in Harlem until like the 60s, like 4 decades later, once they got started.
I wonder why they decided on that name then, or when the name changed. And
I'm not sure exactly when they came upon that name, but they were founded when professional basketball was exclusively for white players only. And so they decided to take basketball to another level, infusing comedy and entertainment. The Harlem Globetrotters have performed in 124 countries around the world on 6 different continents. I can remember going to see them when I was a kid, and what a thrill it was. When they get that magic circle going of passing the ball behind their backs and to each other, there's nothing else quite like that. I also remember when I was a kid, there was a Harlem Globetrotters Saturday morning cartoon.
yes, I remember that.
Yes.
And it was funny. They would just keep scoring baskets and the scoreboard would explode. You know,
And they're still going today. I think
They
you
are
can
still.
they're still touring. And
They are still going today. Absolutely. Still going strong. So happy Harlem Globetrotter Day this Friday, January 7th. Now, Sunday, January 9th, is National Static Electricity Day. Yay!
Oh, that's shocking.
Sparkles.
Static electricity refers to an increased electrical charge present on the surface of an object. This charge either remains on said surface, travels to the ground, gets discharged, or transfers onto another object. When you rub 2 objects together, they acquire equal and opposite charges, developing attraction between them. Simply put, opposite attracts, and the electric force is basically an attraction between opposite charges. So there's nothing quite. I remember being a kid and learning how to rub a balloon on your head and it would stick to the wall for a while.
Yeah. And I think in this area that we're in is so humid that we don't get static electricity
Until it dries out.
Until it dries out.
And then
in the wintertime, sometimes you can get it.
Yeah, we used to do that as kids. Just rub our socks on the carpet and go shock each other. That was kind of like a game we played. Like,
or if you forget to put one of those little sheets in the dryer, you can experience some static as well.
Or just getting out of the car.
Now, I've never been a person that really has done this, but next Friday, January 14th, National Dress Up Your Pet Day.
Oh, we need you to send us pictures. Yes.
Yeah.
Send us pictures of your pets. It's National Dress Up Your Pet Day on January 14th, and we want you to go all out.
And if you go twinsies, that would be even better.
That could be happening, too. Celebrate by dressing up your furry family member in comfortable pet clothing. Maybe even get matching outfits. Oh, you were way ahead of me, Phil.
There it is.
Yeah, there you go. If you want to get crazy, if it were any normal day, people would be staring at you and your dog in the street. However, on National Dress Up Your Pet Day, matching outfits are not only acceptable, but also encouraged. Now, the angel responsible for starting this holiday is is a lady named, here she is. She started in 2009. She's a celebrity pet lifestyle expert and animal behaviorist, Colleen Page.
Pet whisperer.
Thank you, Colleen. It celebrates pets and helps support the pet fashion community. Okay, I'm not really sure I knew there was a pet fashion community.
I didn't either, but
anyway, the chance only comes once a year. It's to wow the neighbors and to unleash the inner diva of your favorite pooch. So make sure your dog is dressed for the occasion.
We need to get an outfit for Phil.
What are you saying?
Well, okay. We hope that everyone listening is doing well and feeling fine. However, from time to time, we all go through times of illness. And we're fortunate, though, to live in an age where medical knowledge is greater than it has ever been. In general, people live longer, healthier lives today than they have at any time in history. I remember when I was a kid, I was walking with my grandmother through a country cemetery, and she pointed out the grave of her little brother who had died when he was only 12 years old. It seems that he had suddenly become ill, and by the time they brought him from their ranch home into the nearby town where there was a doctor, well, he was already dead by the time they got there. And that was in about 1915, and they never really knew what had happened or what had caused it. Well, then a few years after my grandmother told me this, it was actually, in fact, right after my 16th birthday, I became violently ill. This was in 1973. My grandmother happened to come by, and she told my parents that I looked just like her little brother had looked, and that they really needed me to get to the doctor quickly. It turns out that I had a ruptured appendix, and it was very, very painful. I don't think I've ever been in any more pain than that in my life. It ruptured and was getting pretty bad. I was very sick. In fact, my family doctor told me later that I was the sickest person that he had ever seen walk into his office. He immediately scheduled me for surgery to remove the appendix. Of course, I recovered, and my grandmother, now convinced that her little brother had died of a ruptured appendix, told me how fortunate I was to live in the time that I did of a more modern medication.
Right.
For sure.
Well, as mentioned above, we are fortunate to live in an advanced medical age. This is especially evident when we consider some of the bizarre medical practices that used to take place. Today we're going to explore some of these weird medical procedures. From History.com, we find an interesting article written by Evan Andrews titled 7 Unusual Ancient Medical Techniques. You will want to hug your doctor and kiss your radiologist after you hear about some of these.
Or your nurse.
Or your nurse, that's true. Okay, well, for thousands of years, medical practitioners clung to the belief that sickness was merely the result of a little, quote, bad blood, unquote.
For sure.
And so bloodletting was a well-known remedy for going as far back as the ancient Egyptians. In fact, the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates, famous for the Hippocratic Oath, which doctors take even today, well, he maintained that the human body was filled with 4 basic substances, or, quote, humors: yellow bile, black bile, phlegm, and blood. And these needed to be kept in balance to maintain proper health. Thus, it wasn't uncommon for a patient with a fever or other complaint to be diagnosed with an overabundance of blood. Some doctors would just whack open a vein to drain off some excess blood. But
whack open a vein. Yes. I like that. That's technical.
But others believed that specific locations needed to be tapped to bring out the bad blood, and so leeches were employed for the task.
Hey, doc, tap this.
In fact, if a physician wasn't available, then barbers often did the job.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In fact, there's a really great book I read not too long ago called The Bloodletter's Daughter. Well, anyway, this practice continued well into the 19th century. In fact, it was well in vogue among our nation's founders. According to Encyclopedia.com, on the 13th of December, 1799, at the age of 67, former President George Washington came down with what he thought was an ordinary cold and sore throat. By the next morning, he could hardly speak and was unable to swallow. Martha called for the doctor, and in the meantime, Washington himself asked the plantation overseer to bleed him. This stopped only when Martha protested that he was taking too much blood. Washington's insistence on being bled, though, was typical of the time. Most doctors agreed that bleeding would lessen the excitement of the blood vessels, which in turn would reduce pain, induce sleep, and prevent relapse.
It definitely induce sleep, yes.
I'm
Let's
sure it
knock
would.
that out.
James Cook, the first medical doctor to arrive at Washington's bedside, bled him again, and then later a third time, all in the same day.
Wow.
In the late afternoon, aware that the end was approaching, Washington examined his will and spoke with his secretary about financial matters at Mount Vernon. Then, according to his doctors, he expressed a wish that he might be permitted to die without further interruption, and he did die later that evening.
Okay, so, bloodletting, I've known about bloodletting for a long time, and it's hard to imagine that physicians thought that did any good.
Right.
It would seem like they would see that the patient's getting weaker,
Right.
and everything. However, then I found out, okay, so I know a couple of people, but specifically my aunt that has a condition called hemochromatosis,
Okay.
where they have an excess of iron in their blood.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And if left untreated, the extra iron can, cause a lot of damage to their internal organs and even cause death. So the patient that has this is relieved of some blood, like to lower
Still do it then.
right.
Right.
So they go give blood, and so bloodletting is still a thing. That's not what they call it,
Right.
but so my aunt that struggles with this, I mean, she feels immediately better.
Right.
So I wonder if there were some of the physicians were getting that,
There was some
and
connection.
then getting their idea,
Right.
yes, and getting their idea from that. But but this is funny. So during COVID, it was difficult for my aunt to go give blood
Oh, you
because
couldn't
that's
give blood at
considered,
times,
it was an
Yeah.
elective procedure rather than a necessary. It was necessary for her, but she was really struggling. And to help out, sort of as a joke and sort of not, I looked up leeches. And I was surprised. You can buy medicinal
Right.
leeches online. You can buy anything online, but you can buy
Right.
medicinal leeches. We didn't get any, and I don't recommend anybody do that. But I was surprised that you can actually do that. And they're still used today, honestly.
Yes.
Right.
They are still used in some hospitals. They're great at increasing or helping to increase blood flow when limbs are reattached. I know somebody who lost his thumb, and he sawed it off, and then it took a long time to find it, so it was really lost.
Right.
And by the time he got to the hospital and got it reattached, it didn't take, so they had to take it back off. And I wondered, well, just stick a leech on it,
Yeah.
on the end of it, because it gets that blood flowing and gets that vascular channels and everything. But it didn't work. So anyway, leeches are still used today, and so is bloodletting. So
Bloodletting still has its place.
yeah.
Well, humanity's oldest form of surgery is also one of its most gruesome. As far back as 7,000 years ago, civilizations around the world engaged in trepanation, trepanation, trepanation.
You need that like you need a hole in the head.
It's the practice of boring holes in the skull as a means of curing illnesses.
Air conditioning.
That's right.
Yeah.
It makes the wind sound nice as it blows past, too. But anyway, for many years,
Skylight.
Kind of like a bottle, like an empty
Right,
bottle.
an open bottle.
Anyway,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a skylight. I mean,
moving along, for many years among modern scholars, a common theory held that it may have been some form of tribal ritual or even as a method for releasing evil spirits believed to possess the sick and mentally ill. However, it can be argued that it could have been a more conventional surgery used to treat epilepsy, headaches, abscesses, and blood clots. It may have been an effective approach to head injury and the headaches that often accompany them. Headaches after a head injury often do feel like a pounding and pressure inside the head, and thus the idea that a hole in the skull would relieve them is not necessarily magical or bizarre. It's not that far-fetched. Furthermore, epidural bleeding does sometimes accompany head injury, and in these cases, trephining might have actually reduced intracranial pressure. Trephined skulls have been found around the world, especially in Peru, France, and China, so that's quite a variety of places, and evidence shows that many of the patients survived the surgery. Trepanation is still utilized today to treat rare cases of brain hemorrhaging. However, there has also been an emergence of an online culture that encourages do-it-yourself trepanation. We do not recommend that here at Remnant.
Yeah, don't try that at home.
Don't try this at home.
That's not going to end well.
My mom had an aneurysm burst in her brain when I was young, and they did. They removed part of the skull in order to allow it to hemorrhage and swell without damaging the brain. And she lived many, many, many years after that. I mean, they put it back. They put the skull back.
Right, but it let the pressure off, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, so talking about the brain, we can't talk about trepanation without talking about lobotomy.
Ah, yes.
So according to Wikipedia,
Sorry,
a
did we already
lobotomy...
start this conversation?
Yeah, so a lobotomy was a form of psychosurgery, a neurosurgical treatment of a mental disorder that involves severing connections in the brain's prefrontal cortex. Most of the connections to and from the I'm having a hard time with that word, prefrontal cortex, the anterior part of the frontal lobes of the brain, are severed. Right. So basically, lobotomies were performed on people who had mental illnesses that made them difficult and hard to control. It was recognized that the procedure was at the expense of the patient's personality and intellect and left them emotionally blunted and restricted in their intellectual range. Yeah. And they did it anyway. Wow. It made them easier to deal with by, quote, reducing the complexity of psychic life. The lobotomy procedure was barbaric and typically was performed by hammering a sharp instrument, like an ice pick, up under a patient's top eyelid, through their eye socket, and up into the brain.
Yikes.
The surgeon would then kind of stir the brain, scrambling the frontal cortex, observing the effect it was having on the awake and unanesthetized patient.
Holy cow.
That's awful.
Then the procedure would be repeated on the other side.
That sounds like how they would torture people in North Korea.
Yeah, and in mental health asylums were it was just a horrific place, and these things, shock therapy, and this was just another part of it. So Walter Freeman, a doctor who specialized in lobotomization, called the result of the process, quote, and he was trying to say it was a good thing because it surgically induced childhood. He described one 29-year-old lobotomized woman as being a, quote, smiling, lazy, and satisfactory patient with the personality of an oyster.
Oh, she was really no trouble. She just laying there.
Yeah, it just made the patients much easier to deal with. And there was one doctor specifically that really pushed this, and it was Walter Freeman. He really pushed it. He just had this he was famous for this, and he would travel from asylum to asylum to asylum, and they would line up the patients, and he would just do several patients in a day. I won't say 100, but several patients at that location, and then travel to the next location.
Oh, my goodness.
Lobotomies were performed well into the 1950s.
Exactly.
Before people started realizing how barbaric and cruel they actually were, and the procedure finally waned in popularity and stopped being performed.
There was a well-known actress named Frances Farmer who had the frontal lobotomy and I actually worked at the same hospital many, many years later, Washington State Hospital.
There was
Tacoma.
Wide range of results in people. Some people were just incontinent afterwards and had to totally be taken care of, and some people managed to have some sort of life afterwards. But one of the Kennedys was Rosalind Kennedy was lobotomized.
Oh, that's awful. Of course, I if you missed it when I told the joke before, but there's an old country song, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. There you go. Well, anyway, my wife and I were remembering the other day how when we were kids, it wasn't uncommon to play with mercury. You ever play with mercury?
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. It's a liquid, but it
kind of balls up.
Yeah, balls up in a sphere.
It seemed like a glass thermometer maybe would break, and the mercury would condense into small little balls.
Oops.
Mm-hmm. Of course, mercury is notorious for its toxic properties, but it was once used as a common elixir and topical medicine. The ancient Persians and Greeks considered it a useful ointment, and a second century Chinese alchemist prized liquid mercury, or quicksilver as it was called, and red mercury sulfide for their supposed ability to increase lifespan and vitality. I wonder how they figured that. Anyway.
Well, they weren't around to argue.
Some healers even promised that by consuming noxious brews containing poisonous mercury, sulfur, and arsenic, their patients would gain eternal life and the ability to walk on water. One of the most famous casualties of this diet was the Chinese Emperor Shi Huang. He's famous for being the great unifier of China. In fact, China is named for the Emperor Qin. And also for the more than 8,000 terracotta soldiers found in his tomb.
Yeah.
Qin supposedly died after ingesting mercury pills designed to make him immortal. I guess it didn't really work out for him too well, though.
Oops.
Okay, so you say, Persians and Greeks, the ancient Persians and Greeks considered it a useful ointment, as well as 1970s housewives.
Really?
Housewives.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, don't you remember? Okay, so mercurochrome.
Mercurochrome, okay.
Okay, it was a topical antiseptic used to treat minor cuts and scrapes.
I had that used. I didn't realize it had mercury in it.
Yeah, okay, so it was very popular in my childhood. We called it monkey blood because it would stain your skin red. And my parents never used it. And I wanted them to, because it was like this badge of honor, you know? Yeah, like you'd fall down, scrape your knee, and get this on it. And it was very glaringly obvious that you had a wound. And but parents stopped using it altogether when mercury was found out to be dangerous, even though it contained so little mercury. It really wasn't dangerous. So monkey blood was never actually banned by the FDA. It was just banned by parents. And then other more effective antiseptics became available. But yeah, monkey blood, mercurochrome.
I was so happy for Bactine to come out because that stuff would sting. It would really, I remember my mother blowing on your cut as she was putting it on there. Well, now the ancient Egyptians had a remarkably well-organized medical system, complete with doctors who specialized in healing special ailments. Nevertheless, the cures they prescribed, well, they really weren't always up to snuff. Lizard blood, dead mice, mud, and moldy bread were all used as topical ointments and dressings, and women were sometimes dosed with horse saliva as a cure for impaired libido.
Okay.
If that doesn't get you in the mood, I don't know what will.
Spit on it.
Well, but okay, so wait a minute. Let's just look at this for a minute. Horse saliva.
Horse saliva.
I'm not touching that. But the moldy bread, like I could see that. That's penicillin.
Yeah,
I could see that. And I know that I've seen, I don't even know where I've seen it. I think maybe in old movies or whatever, where they wad up a piece of bread and stick it in a bullet wound to stop the bleeding. Anyway, whatever. But lizard blood, dead mice, it's like double toil and trouble.
But, recent research has shown that Egypt really did have a pretty intricate medical care system. Even for the pyramid builders, they weren't necessarily not just gangs of slaves, but they were really prized construction workers, and they had a good medical care system. There's recent evidence showing that broken bones were set well and healed and stuff.
It was PPO, not HMO.
Exactly. Pharaoh's, well, never mind. But
preferred
among the Egyptian tricks were, some kind of disgusting things, including human and animal dung as a cure-all remedy for diseases and injuries. According to 1500 BC's Eber's Papyrus, that's pretty amazing that still exists, doesn't it? Donkey, dog, gazelle, and fly dung were all celebrated for their healing properties and their ability to ward off bad spirits.
But
wait a minute. Spirits are always something you need to take care of.
Right.
Fly dung.
Fly dung.
How'd they find it?
That's pretty
How do you
rare.
collect
I
that?
mean, I know. Like to get a vial of that. That's okay.
I followed it around a while.
Fly dung. Okay.
Well, there were a lot. They had those plagues of flies back then. There was a lot more of them. While these repugnant remedies may have occasionally led to tetanus and other infections, they probably weren't entirely ineffective. Research shows the microflora found in some types of animal dung do contain antibiotic substances, so they may have been onto something a little bit anyway.
May have caused some other stuff, but hey,
it might have helped a little bit. So
I'm gonna leave it in the yard. Sorry.
Additionally, from weirdhistorian.com, we find information about a 1764 medical book called Pharmacopoeia Universalis, which includes the following remedies. Raven dung, suspended around the necks of children, is reported to ease their coughs.
Because they're trying not to breathe.
Are 9 pieces of rat's dung swallowed are accounted by some of our good women as a singular remedy for suppression of the menstrual cycle.
Oh, okay.
9 pieces of rat dung.
Okay.
And
wow.
peacock dung, dried and pulverized, have a peculiar virtue for curing vertigo and epilepsy. So that was all from the 1764 medical book. Let's see, what was that called? Oh, yeah, it was called the Pharmacopoeia Universalis.
Oh, wow.
Wait. So you could cure vertigo and epilepsy.
Right. Both at one time.
There were a lot of weird cures for epilepsy.
2 for 1.
A lot of them.
Now, suffering from persistent headaches, muscle cramps, or stomach ulcers, once upon a time, your local physician may have prescribed an elixir containing human flesh, bone, or blood.
It's called Soylent Green.
So-called corpse medicine was a disturbingly common practice for hundreds of years. The Romans believed that the blood of a fallen gladiator could cure epilepsy.
See?
Oh, there's epilepsy again.
Wow, yeah.
And
shake it off.
12th century apothecaries were known for keeping a stock of, quote, mummy powder, a macabre extract made from ground-up mummies located in Egypt. So, you got a little bottle of mummy powder. You want to spread that on that. It'll help you get well. Meanwhile, in 17th century England, King Charles II was known for enjoying a draft of, quote, king's drops, quote, or unquote, a restorative brew made from crumbled human skull and alcohol.
Nice. That's the reason mummies are so rare, because we ate them.
That's right.
I'm not lying.
We're just spreading around.
Ate them, ground them up, used them for medication and ointments.
Yeah, all of those tombs were looted, and
These cannibalistic medicines were thought to have magical properties. By consuming the remains of deceased persons, the patient also ingested part of their spirit, leading to increased vitality and well-being. The type of cure prescribed usually corresponded to the type of ailment. Skull was used for migraines, and human fat for muscle aches. Well, makes sense.
Sure.
This for this, that for that. But getting fresh stock could be a gruesome process. In fact, in some cases, the sickly would even attend public executions in hopes of getting a cheap cup of the freshly killed person's blood. As long as he's not using it anymore, can you fill this one up?
I didn't research this for this episode, and it just came to my mind, but corpse fat was a thing.
Okay.
To make lotion and things like that. Anyway, and they got it from those that were hanged. So speaking of cannibalism.
Why not?
In the name of health. In 16th century China, there was a medicinal remedy called mellified man, which involved turning a person into what was basically a human mummified candy bar. Mellified man was then ingested to help alleviate ailments from, like, broken bones. The mellification process was long and intricate. It started with an elderly person that was reaching the end of their life who agreed to do this in order to help the future generations.
Well, I can understand
so
that.
It's akin to donating your body to science, except for the process began before the subject was even dead. That's right. So quoting from an article in allthat'sinteresting.com, to begin, the donor would stop eating anything other than honey, and would occasionally even bathe in it. Soon, the honey would begin to build up inside of the body, and obviously, because an all-honey diet is not sustainable, the person would die.
Right.
Death by honey. Then after death, their body would be placed in a stone coffin and filled with honey. Then nature would be left to take its course. The coffin would be left closed for up to a century, letting the honey preserve the corpse. Because honey never spoils and has antibacterial properties, it made for a very effective preservative. This would eventually make the corpse a sugary blob, which would then be packaged and sold at markets for all sorts of treatments, like bone fractures, wounds, and even internal ailments. I got all this lovely, disgusting information at allthat'sinteresting.com.
So did they get to ask, did they set it up inside the carts and stuff, like, this is male, this is female, Bob, Joe, Sue?
I don't know. Well, since it took 100 years, and I want to say, like, they were considering that they were doing it for their posterity, and I don't know if, like, the family got certain rights. I don't know, like first dibs on it. I don't know.
It was a noble idea, but probably didn't really have that much effectiveness, do you think?
Yeah.
It's a lot of honey, too.
It's a lot of honey.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wanting some baklava right now.
But probably not a bit of honey candy bar, right? Yeah.
Right.
Well, back to the Greeks again. Ancient Greek doctors believed that a woman's womb was a separate creature with a mind of its own.
It's
no
not?
doubt.
Yeah. According to the writings of Plato and Hippocrates, when a woman was celibate for an extended time, her uterus, described as a living animal, eager to bear children, could dislodge and glide freely about her body, causing suffocation, seizures, and hysteria.
Wow, that's impressive.
I do know. Remember, we talked about it when trains were invented.
Oh, yeah.
And all of that. Women weren't allowed to ride on it because they were afraid their uterus were just going to fly out of their body. Yeah.
Right. Just go off on its own.
So anyway.
Well, to prevent their wombs from...
See ya, I'm out of here.
To prevent their wombs from going on walkabout, ancient women were counseled to marry young and bear as many children as possible. For a womb that had already broken free, doctors prescribed therapeutic baths, infusions, and physical massage to try to force it back in position.
Okay.
They might even fumigate the patient's head with sulfur and pitch while simultaneously rubbing pleasant-smelling lotions between her thighs. The logic being that the womb would flee from the bad smells and move back into its rightful place near the good smells. That makes perfectly good sense to me.
Just okay.
Oh my goodness,
that's impressive.
This is a family friend.
Right.
Get back down there.
We kept it scientific.
But I do understand where a woman would consider that her womb's trying to kill her. You know, like you can get to that point.
Exactly. Now, for the ancient Babylonians, most illnesses were thought to be the result of demonic forces or punishment by the gods for past misdeeds. Doctors often had more in common with priests and exorcists than modern physicians, and their cures usually involved some component of magic. For example, if a patient ground their teeth, the healer might suspect that the ghost of a deceased family member was trying to contact them as they slept. According to the ancient necromantic texts, the doctors would recommend sleeping with a human skull for a week as a way of exorcising the spirit. To ensure the disturbing treatment worked, the tooth grinder was also instructed to kiss and lick the skull 7 times each night. So,
okay, I picture this like them snuggled up to it like a teddy bear.
Right. I got my skull here, and
hey, Mom, I forgot Bob. Where's Bob?
Oh wow! And speaking of licking, okay, so this is a tangent, but I love bones, and I collect animal bones and animal skulls, and so I'm part of this group on Facebook of skull and bone identification. And there is, okay, so in order, like when you're looking for bones or whatever, and you don't know what you have is a bone or if it's a rock, sometimes it's hard to tell.
It's called the lick test.
There's the lick test.
Yeah,
that's right.
Lick it.
Oh,
that's
okay.
right. And it's not like licking it like a Tootsie Roll pop or anything, you know. It's just like sticking your tongue.
Tell us about it, Leah. Come on now.
You're kind of apprehensive to do so.
Yeah, you know.
You're like,
but the thing is bone is porous and it's supposed to stick to your tongue. Now, I have never done this. Okay, just saying.
Oh, okay.
I've never done
I
this.
think you need to research this further. Report back to us.
Yeah, I'll get one of my kids to do that.
Hey, Sam.
Okay, so moving right along. Okay, this is one of the things that made me want to do this topic. A bezoar. Have you heard of a bezoar? I bet you have, and you just don't remember it. It's a bezoar, as it's called, shows up in the Harry Potter novels. So Professor Snape explains to his class, and I think this is in the first. I know it's in the first movie, so first book. He explains to his class that a bezoar is a stone from the stomach of a goat that will save a person from most poisons. Oh. Bezoars don't exist just in the wizarding world. They have been around a long time as a way to protect against poisoning. According to HowStuffWorks.com, a bezoar is a lump of hardened, undigested material found in the gastrointestinal tract of a deer, antelope, goats, oxen, llamas.
Okay.
It forms when layers of calcium and magnesium phosphate build up around a small bit of plant fiber or pebble. So kind of like, and then
kind of like the thing in the whale we were talking about one time.
Yeah, that's true. So stomach contraction, squeeze and smooth it into a roughly round shape. A bezoar would be worn as a charm or ground into a powder and consumed as a preventative to being poisoned, or it could be dropped into a drink suspected to contain poison in order to neutralize it.
Did it work?
Well, here's the deal. Okay. That's a good question. Now, did any of this stuff work?
I don't know.
Like, for crying out loud,
Must have worked something somewhere, or they would have kept doing it.
Well, it stopped some people from going crazy.
That's not true. Like, this stuff doesn't work. You can have medicinal stuff that does not work, snake oil or whatever. People are going to believe in it. Okay, you're going to get people that believe in it. But French surgeon Ambroise Paré, I think it's Paré, had his doubts about bezoars. In 1575, he performed an experiment to test how effective they were. A servant of his, I think it was a cook, had been evicted of stealing and sentenced to hang. Paré struck a deal with the servant. If he would agree to be poisoned, he would be given the treatment of a bezoar immediately, and if he lived, he could go free. The servant agreed and unfortunately died in horrible pain. Yeah, so Paré had his proof.
It wasn't the right bezoar.
That's right.
You had to go get it from a deer.
Okay, but here's the thing. Okay, so I'm from the Appalachian area, as we've said, and one of my all-time favorite books is Crawford's Journal. It's a collection of stories and anecdotes from rural people of Kentucky, curated by journalist Byron Crawford.
Okay.
In it, he talks about the old hand-me-down remedies of madstones, which seems to be a form of the bezoar tradition. Yeah. Okay, so madstones typically came from the stomach of a cud-chewing animal and was used in the treatment of rabies. So not poison this time. This is rabies.
Specifically.
The treatment consisted of soaking the stone in milk and then applying it to the wound of the person suspected of having contracted rabies. If the stone stuck to the wound, then they had rabies. The stone would be left on the wound until it fell off and then soaked in milk again and reapplied to the wound. When the stone would no longer stick, then the rabies had been sucked from the patient, and the milk in the bowl was said to have usually turned green during this process. Madstones were prized possessions, considered to be rare and almost sacred items among the Appalachian people because they didn't understand how it worked. They just knew it worked. And I don't know if anybody has ever tested that. I can't imagine exactly how that would work other than it's, porous, and I don't know.
Wow.
But I got my information from howstuffworks.com and from Crawford's Journal.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Byron Crawford for giving me permission to quote directly from his book.
Oh, thank you, Byron. We're grateful for that.
Yeah.
We're grateful for that for sure.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, here's a question for you. Do you sleep with a fan in your room?
Yes.
2.
Yeah, like all day, every day. I mean, or
frequently,
every night, no matter how cold it is, okay?
Yeah,
I have to have a fan.
Moving.
And do you sleep with the door closed?
No.
No? Okay,
door closed, yeah.
I have to sleep with the door closed. I need my room as dark as possible, and I need a fan going. So did you know that there's a pervasive belief in South Korea that sleeping with a fan on and the door closed will cause death?
Really?
It's such a common idea that Korean fans are often made with timers on them so that they will turn off automatically and not stay on through the night and kill you. There are 2 theories behind this that what might cause, quote, fan death. Some say that the fan may lower the body temperature enough to cause hypothermia. Still others say that a fan left on in a closed room can prevent proper breathing, leading to suffocation. No one quite knows where the idea got started, but Korean news sources have helped spread the belief by reporting on alleged fan deaths.
Oh.
Also, the Korea...
Blame it on the media.
Yeah,
Right.
And this is like going on now. Like, it's not... This isn't an old thing.
Okay.
Also, the Korea Consumer Protection Board issued a consumer safety alert in 2006, warning that asphyxiation from electric fans and air conditioners was among South Korea's 5 most common summer accident or injuries, according to the data they collected. The report stated, quote, if bodies are exposed to electric fans or air conditioners for too long, it causes the bodies to lose water and causes hypothermia. If directly in contact with air current from a fan, this could lead to death from an increase of carbon dioxide saturation concentration and a decrease of oxygen concentration. The risks are higher for the elderly and patients with respiratory problems. From 2003 to 2005, a total of 20 cases were reported through the CISS involving asphyxiations caused by leaving electric fans and air conditioners on while sleeping.
Wow.
To prevent asphyxiation, timers should be set, wind directions should be rotated, and doors should be left open.
You know, I had a chance to go to South Korea about 8 years ago, and you know, we're here in the greater cut and shoot area in East Texas where it's pretty humid.
Yeah.
But it's nothing like the humidity in Korea. It's very, very, very humid.
I can't imagine. Like, I would think that more people would die of
and I wonder if that has something to do with it.
overheating.
Yeah. Well, it's not. It is hot there in the daytime, but it's just extremely humid. And I don't know if that has any play in this or not. So that's a really interesting article. And so they're very. It's a very intelligent culture, and so there must be something to it. You would think for them to follow up on that.
I don't know, but yeah, they are convinced that if you leave a fan on and close the door overnight, that you have a serious risk of death.
Right.
Wow.
And I got a lot of my information from Wikipedia.
See, very good.
And now for something completely off topic and off kilter. Brace yourself for the oddity du jour.
All right, it's time for the oddity today. Wait a second, I got to get something here. Hold on. Here we go.
Oh man, those are some awesome.
Oh my
boots.
goodness.
Those are amazing.
Those are beautiful.
Yeah, there we go.
They're even polished.
Yeah.
And now everyone's trying to figure out.
Okay.
What
Okay,
we're
you
talking
may want
about.
to take a picture of this, I'm sure.
These are some pretty amazing shoes.
Yeah, they are. For our oddity today, we're going to focus on a fashion accessory, specifically the high-heeled shoe. Did you know that high heels were originally designed exclusively for men?
Okay.
That's true, exclusively for men. The practice of wearing high heels goes all the way back to the 10th century Persia, which is now Iraq and Iran. It seems that Persian soldiers hit upon the idea that wearing heeled boots and shoes gave them greater stability in battle when they stood up in the stirrups of their horses to shoot arrows from a bow.
Okay.
The heels wedged itself tightly to the stirrup, so it gave them, rather than slipping out, it'd be right there. By the 17th century, 1-inch heels were the norm for Persian riders, both on and off their horses. Because owning horses was a symbol of wealth, well, then heeled shoes also came to signify money and power as well. So the heel served as a practical as well as a symbolic purpose in Persian society. Well, around that time, or in the 1600s, the Persian Shah, Abbas I, had the largest cavalry in the world, and he was also keen to forge links with rulers in Western Europe to help him defeat his great enemy, the Ottoman Empire, those Turks. So in 1599, he sent a diplomatic delegation, including several dozen heeled horsemen, to call in the courts of Russia, Germany, and Spain. Well, you can guess what happened when the Europeans saw them. They instantly became interested in all things Persian, especially those heeled shoes. Persian-style shoes were enthusiastically adopted by aristocrats who sought to give their appearance a virile, masculine edge that it suddenly seemed only heeled shoes could supply. As the wearing of heels filtered into the lower ranks of society, the aristocracy was responded by dramatically increasing the height of their shoes, and the high heel was born. Now, obviously, high-heeled shoes have no practical utility at all.
Wait, they make your calves look really good.
Well, that is true. But, that's kind of the point. If you really want to show off your high status, you do it through impracticality. It was not at all uncommon for the upper classes to show off their privileged station by wearing nonsense, impractical, luxurious clothing, so the high heel was a perfect fit for them. Perhaps history's most notable male high-heel wearer was King Louis XIV of France. Now, poor Louis, he was only 5 feet 4 inches tall, but he padded that height an additional 4 inches with a pair of clunky red heels.
That took some getting used to.
Yeah, Louis was so fond of red that he declared that only members of his court were allowed to wear shoes with that particular color. So if you ever look at a picture of French aristocracy, you can see who was in with Louis' court, because they were the only ones allowed to wear red heels. And paintings, you'll still see them.
Huh. Wow.
However, the fad carried across the English Channel because there's also a portrait of Charles II of England. Didn't we mention him earlier? Was he the one that had the King's drops or something? Anyway, no, that was a different Charles, I think. Anyway, there's a picture of Charles II of England's coronation in 1661 featuring him wearing a pair of enormous red French-style heels. Although he was over 6 feet tall to begin with, so he really towered.
Like
so he really stood out.
So, things like this, it starts out, 1 or 2 inches, and then, you just get more and more and more outrageous.
Yeah, well, I remember the disco era, so I remember how that went.
Yeah, those shoes that you just showed.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, that was.
We know when those are from.
Exactly. Around the year 1630, women in Europe began to borrow fashion ideas from men. They were seen wearing masculine hats, cutting their hair shorter, and adding epaulets to their dresses. In a further effort to make their outfits more masculine, women began wearing high-heeled shoes. By the mid-1700s, women's heels had become more slender and curvaceous. At the same time, men's fashion shifted toward more practical clothing. In England, aristocrats began to wear simplified clothes that were linked to their work managing country estates. It was the beginning of what has been called the Great Male Renunciation, which would see men abandon wearing jewelry, bright colors, and ostentatious fabrics in favor of dark, more sober, and practical looks. Along with this, men began rejecting the high heel, which had tremendous popularity with women.
Yeah, no more dandies.
Exactly. In the American West, the cowboy boot became popular for similar practical reasons as had been discovered by those Persian soldiers. And this practicality now has carried over into the non-horseback riding population as a popular fashion for men of all walks. Occasionally heeled platform shoes for men do flash around again. And yes, I had some back in the 70s.
And apparently today.
Well, I at my school, we have at times you can dress up in certain decades for certain occasions. And so, yeah, I purchased a 70s outfit, including the high platform shoes that I've got out here on the table.
They're well polished.
They're beautiful.
But generally, the fashion has not endured among men.
That's a great oddity.
Nice.
Speaking of cowboy boots, I see an awful lot of people on a recent trip to Nashville wearing cowboy boots that I'm sure have never been anywhere near a horse. So,
or cattle or
anything else.
You kind of get that here too. You can kind of tell those that have the.
My uncle would have called them drugstore cowboys.
Yeah. Yes,
that's right. That's right.
And now for something really smashing.
Okay, so now back to our topic. Here's a couple items that are interesting in our medicinal topic. Plague stones are found all across England, usually in the form of hollowed-out stones or boulders. They're relics of the medieval plagues. It's been known for a long time that vinegar has antifungal properties. So in order to get supplies and like food and medicine and stuff to plague victims, plague stones were set out and filled with vinegar so that money could be exchanged safely. So like if you were taking food to a family that had the plague, you would set the food over to the side or whatever where they could get it and back up and get away. And then they would place the money inside that vinegar in that
So that would kill
dish.
any of the plague then.
That's right. So then that could be collected by those that didn't have the plague.
Oh, okay.
And they're still all over Europe.
Just as long as you're not downwind.
Yeah.
Well, that just came up during the pandemic recently because there were a lot of places that quit handling cash.
Right, that's right.
Went straight
because
to cards.
Straight to cards. It's so filthy. I mean, you think about, tangent again.
Right.
Welcome
I'm
to
a
the
junk
show.
food junkie, and I love to go through drive-thrus and everything. And I keep thinking, quit this single-use plastic. Let's have our cups, and you fill my cup and all of that. And everybody's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
For the health department won't allow, but they allow you to handle money.
Right
Next to the food. So, and that's like one of the filthiest things that you can have.
Absolutely.
Right. Count out your change and everything.
So anyway, okay. All right. Back on topic. So, we talked about iron being, too much iron, but iron deficiency is actually a real problem across the world.
Right.
And this was especially true in Cambodia, where iron deficiency is the most widespread nutritional disorder in the country. In 2008, health workers attempted to combat this by distributing iron discs to be placed in pots during cooking where the iron would leach out into the food. And it doesn't change the taste or anything. It's like us cooking in a cast iron pot or whatever. You do get some of that iron. Cambodian housewives, however, they weren't having it. They just didn't believe that this was going to help them. It didn't make any sense to them, so they just didn't do it. And the program was doomed to fail. But in talking with the village elders, it was discovered that a certain fish species was deemed a symbol of good luck, health, and happiness in local folklore. So the health workers then decided to rebrand the iron disc and form it into the shape of a fish. They called it a lucky ironfish. These were received much more positively by the community. And so, and you would put it in your pot and you would boil, water and you'd make rice and all of that kind of stuff. And it led to the immediate increases in blood iron levels among the villagers. Anemia was virtually eliminated.
Good idea. Who came up with that?
Nice.
That was a good thought.
So, that's fascinating that they did that. They came up with a solution and it's a perfect solution. Let's do it. And it just didn't go over. And so instead of abandoning it, they figured it out.
Yeah, it was really good.
Okay, so this is a treatment. This is a weird treatment, I have to mention. It's all about, and this is going on. This is a modern treatment, okay?
Okay.
It's all
if you
about.
can't fix it, duck it.
It's all about the removal of warts.
Ooh,
This was actually recommended to me by my kid's pediatrician, and we did it. It involves putting a small piece of duct tape on a wart. As the kid goes through their days playing, the tape eventually comes off and painlessly takes a little bit of the wart with it. How gross is that? And then you apply the duct tape again and keep repeating the process until the entire wart is gone. It doesn't actually cure warts, which are caused by a virus. Their body eventually has to build up an immunity to the virus and the warts go away. But it is an effective way of removing a wart that's in a bothersome place.
So
Interesting.
Remove it a little bit at a time with duct tape.
And, and then your brother, rips it off and it speeds up that process.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Who was that comedian out of Canada that used to fix everything with duct tape? You remember that guy?
I don't know.
Red Green.
Red Green.
Red Green.
Red Green. That was a hilarious show.
Well, we go through a lot of duct tape at our house.
Yes.
Like we use it. I think my son has a duct tape, and he's like 20. He'll be 25 this year.
Right.
He has a duct tape wallet.
I've seen a duct tape suit.
Prom dress. Yeah, I've seen that too.
Okay, so another trendy medical remedy is colloidal silver. Have you heard of that?
Colloidal silver.
It hasn't been. It's not trendy right now, but it has been in the 80s. A colloidal substance consists of microscopic particles suspended in a liquid. So colloidal silver contains actual silver particles, almost nano size. Even though the FDA in 1999 warned that ingesting colloidal silver isn't safe or effective for treating any disease or condition, many companies continue to produce it and market it as a dietary supplement because there was a market for it. People wanted it.
People will buy it, I guess.
So recently it has experienced a revival in popularity, with some claiming it can replace antibiotics or other medical therapies to treat bacterial, viral, and fungal infections. And there's even a small number of people who claim it can treat illnesses such as Lyme disease, tuberculosis, and even HIV or AIDS.
Oh, wow.
But here's the thing about taking colloidal silver. The silver builds up in your body over time, and it can cause what's called ageria, I think is how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
That's when your skin, eyes, and internal organs, sometimes your nails and gums as well, turn a blue-gray color, especially in areas of the body exposed to sunlight, and it's irreversible. The change is permanent.
Oh, wow.
So there's this case of this guy, Paul Carrison, who consumed colloidal silver for over 10 years. And so famously, his skin turned very blue. He had white hair and a beard. He looked like Papa Smurf.
Oh, my God.
And we'll have a picture. We'll have a picture of him on the thing. He died a few years ago of a heart attack, not due to this. But he apparently, he continued taking colloidal silver to his death. Like it was a regiment that he believed in, I guess.
Right. Sometimes when people are convinced that it's helping them,
they'll just keep on trucking.
They will keep on taking it.
And
especially with things like Lyme disease that are, not really any known cure to begin with. So.
And I don't remember exactly why he started taking it, but he was a believer, and he was very, very blue. Like he wasn't just slightly blue. And I got my information from Wikipedia and the Department of Health and Human Services website. This next topic may be just a little bit controversial.
Okay, I'm ready.
Many people today shy away from mainstream medicine and instead opt for more natural remedies.
Right.
There are many reasons behind this that we don't have time to get into today, but in many cases, a natural remedy can be just as good or even better than what a pharmacological company could produce.
Okay.
But one practice that I just don't understand people partaking in is homeopathy.
Okay.
Hold on a minute. It's homeopathy. Sorry, homeopathy.
Yeah.
I think that people make it, maybe in an effort to take a more natural approach to their health, they accept homeopathy without really knowing what it's about, thinking that it's just like a natural alternative medicine.
Well, it sounds good.
But
you do it at home, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, homeopathy really has nothing to do with home. It just isn't, it's just not mainstream medicine. It was conceived in 1796 by a German physician, Samuel Hahnemann, I think maybe is how you pronounce it, and is based on the belief that the body can cure itself. Its practitioners, called homeopaths, believe that a substance can cause symptoms of a disease in healthy people, can cure similar symptoms in sick people. This doctrine is called similia similibus curantur, or like cures like.
I see.
Something that in large doses creates the symptoms of a disease will, in small doses, treat it.
I see.
This is similar to the theory behind vaccines, but with very important differences. Okay, so for example, red onion makes your eyes water, so it is used in homeopathic remedies for allergies. Homeopathic preparations, though, or remedies, are made using homeopathic dilution. So let's get into that.
All right.
And it's very precise and complicated and everything, but we're gonna make it really simple. Okay. The dilutions are measured using the capital letter C. A very simplified explanation is that that 1C is obtained by mixing 1 part of the tincture of an active ingredient, which is usually like a plant. Okay, so it's a plant, with 9 parts of ethanol in a vial, and then vigorously shaking the solution. And like I said, there's a very specific number. Ethanol or water or something to dilute it.
All right.
And it's shaken a certain number of times. It's hit against the table a certain number of times.
Lean to the left or the
right. Yeah, it's kind of
okay.
like that. So the result is a 1/100th dilution of the plant. Tincture starting out as a 1/10th dilution of the plant itself. So it's
really diluted then.
So 1C is 100th, okay? So you've got 1 part active ingredient to 100th part of the whatever you're diluting it with, right? Okay. The 2C is obtained by mixing 1 part of the 1C with 99 parts of ethanol in a new vial and shaking that solution.
Okay.
Recurrently, the 3C is obtained by mixing 1 part of the 2C with 99 parts of ethanol in a new vial and shaking it.
Okay.
Hahnemann advocated 30C dilutions for most purposes. At a dilution of just 12C, it is determined by scientists that there is unlikely to be even 1 molecule of the active ingredient in an entire liter of the dilution.
Wow.
Imagine if our bodies were that reactive to ingredients. Like that would cure you. So instead of taking an aspirin, you put an aspirin, cut it into tenths,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Put that into, 9 parts of water, and shake that up, and then put that into 100 parts of water, and then put that into 100 parts of water, and then put that into 30 times.
So you're ending up with nothing.
Yes. Yes. So homeopathy or homeopathy, it just makes no sense whatsoever. But and it's been proven by scientists time and time and time again to be ineffective in curing any ailment. Yet homeopathic remedies are still being sold in stores. Like you can go to Walgreens.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And people still continue to turn to them as an alternative treatment. So, and I don't get it, but I guess I do get it, because you do want, sometimes you want a natural, something,
but at some point, too far is not when you're when you're not going to have anything in the vial to actually
help you.
Exactly. And I think people just don't realize it. I think people just see the word homeopathy or homeopathy and think natural. And
good.
And so anyway, I got my info from Wikipedia and the Department of Health and Human Services website.
Very good. Well, from a Mental Floss article called 30 strange medical treatments from history. We learned
not like any of the others we discussed before were weird.
Right.
Yeah.
Now
we're going for 30 strange ones.
30 strange ones. We're probably not going to get to all 30 of them, but we'll hit a few of them that were more interesting. We learned of a rare medical book called Bald's Leech Book. Going back to the leeches again. It is the medical textbook from around the 10th century. There's only one copy known to exist, and it's located in the British Library in London, which, by the way, is a fascinating place to go. And it's free. You can go into the British Library without having to pay anything. And really a lot of amazing displays there.
So if you have an ailment, go look at this book.
Go look it up. You could look up Balds.
This could just be fun.
Several interesting bits from Balds includes putting burnt periwinkle flower and honey in the eyes to cure cataracts.
Okay.
Or to treat swollen eyes, take a live crab, cut its eyes out, throw the crab back in the water, and then apply the eyes on the neck of the man who hath need. Okay.
Okay.
And
don't eat the crab.
Don't eat the crab. No, just take its eyes out and rub them on your neck. And to treat swelling of any kind, take the tooth out of a live fox and rub it on the swollen body part. So, your thumb's swollen there. Let's get a fox over here and knock one of his tooth out.
And don't kill the fox.
Just
Pull that tooth.
We're just going to
release
get
him back to the wild.
Yeah. How do you do that? I'm not sure.
I'm thinking that person that's pulling that tooth is going to need some help, too.
Maybe at that time, fox were a lot more common around the campfire, but I'm not sure. Anyway, another text noted in the article was Dr. Thomas Jefferson Ritter's Mother's Remedies. Over 1,000 tried and true tested remedies from mothers in the United States and Canada, published in 1910.
Okay.
It contains many remedies that may have not been such a great idea after all, like the one for hay fever, which called for spraying a, quote, 4% solution of cocaine up the nose.
I'm thinking that would work.
That would... Yeah,
Yeah,
they're not going to have any problems with hay fever anymore.
Right.
Cocaine was really
They're just high as a
widely
kite.
used.
Right. In
Cocaine
fact,
was used for a lot of
it was
things.
really a normal back then for cocaine to be prescribed for ingestion, fatigue, eye pain, and hemorrhoids. And there's another image there.
Okay.
I think that might burn a little. Imagine applying cocaine or... well, anyway. Dr. Ritter has an interesting fix for chapped hands. Put sour cream in a cloth, bury it outside overnight, then unearth it the next morning and apply the sour cream the next day. Evidently, putting it in the ground overnight stimulates the healing qualities. In the meantime, you're stuck with your chapped hands, probably digging a hole in the ground.
Right.
Sounds even worse. Oh, yeah, to heal ringworm, Mother's Remedies recommends a paste made of gunpowder and vinegar be applied to the infection. Well, we know vinegar does have some
it does
gunpowder,
have some healing properties.
I'm not sure about the gunpowder.
Some of these remedies, though, my grandmother used to give us whiskey, whiskey for things. And I some of these
Toothaches
things work,
and stuff,
Yeah.
And so whenever my kids have a sore throat or something like that, I give them hot tea, honey, lemon, and a little bit of whiskey. Yeah, I do. And when I say kids, okay, they're not 4 or 5.
Right.
They're older kids.
They're
but
big. Well, now also from the Mental Floss article, between the mid-18s and early 1900s, 25 cents could buy you a bottle of Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup for your baby. It was advertised as a solution for colic, teething, diarrhea, and any pain, and it worked. Because it contained a whole lot of morphine.
Oh.
I was expecting, back to the whiskey or bourbon. But okay.
Morphine.
Morphine.
We just went straight to the great stuff.
Go to the hard stuff. That's right. This kid.
Loves it. He keeps wanting more.
Whew. Give me another one.
Okay. All right. So did you guys know that in emergencies, coconut water can be used as a replacement for blood plasma?
No, I did not know that.
That's interesting.
Okay, this is and I'm using finger quotes here, factoid.
Big finger
That's been
quotes.
shared on Facebook, particularly in the South Africa region. Yeah. But I do know people that have said that to me. So it's a thing that's known, except it's really not true. There are stories that coconut water was reportedly given intravenously to people during World War II when regular IV saline solution was in short supply. There is no basis for the stories, and many doctors have come forward to say that they would never do this, not in an emergency or anything else. So coconut water has been embraced as a great solution to treating dehydration, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So drink it don't inject it.
Right. Okay.
I got that information from npr.org and africacheck.org.
Ultimately, is let it go through your body naturally. Don't inject it.
Yeah, don't inject it. And then the one last tidbit, you've seen old movies or cartoons showing a raw steak being put on a black eye,
A
right?
black eye, right. Yeah.
So in researching for this episode, I wondered what that was all about. So as a kid, I thought there was something magical about steak, right? You know?
There is something magical about steak.
Okay, so it's pretty delicious.
It's got a magic to it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it could help what else you did. But
Right.
okay, so looking it up, it turns out that the reason it was used was just because it presumably came from a fridge or freezer. It was cold. It was a cold compress.
Yeah, it's like peas for other issues.
Well, and I'm thinking
Frozen
that.
peas.
Okay, so here's the deal. I think maybe ice was too precious because it came in blocks. You didn't just
right.
get it out of an ice dispenser, and shipping it off takes too long. And today we have much better alternatives than using a slab of meat. And when I'm cooking, I'm very well aware of the bacteria of raw meat. So I really can't imagine sticking that on my eye, but whatever. So, so if you absolutely feel the need to use food as a cold compress, then again, like you said, invest in a bag of frozen peas.
Frozen peas.
A whole lot easier.
Yeah. And here's the deal. Okay. So when my kids were little, you can put ice in a bag and all of that, but it melts, and then the kids open the bag and all that. We had a bag of frozen peas.
And it forms it forms well to whatever.
Okay, so and I took a marker and I would write, because this is not to be eaten.
Not to do not eat
you don't
these
want
peas.
You don't want it to thaw against some kid's knee or whatever, and then be frozen
give me the peas,
again,
we need to...
and then eat it.
Yeah.
But yeah, frozen peas works great, and the kids don't seem to want to open these little green vegetables. So
peas.
yeah, it's peas. So there you
Very
go.
good.
And I got the information on the steak from mentalfloss.com.
We love mental floss.
And now it's time, boys and girls, for the Trivia Challenge.
Well, it's time for that Trivia Challenge. Once again, you know how this works. Like and follow our Facebook page at Remnant Stew Podcast. Like and share this episode post. Put your answer to the Trivia Challenge question in the comments of that post. The first person to do all that will be the winner.
Woohoo!
And will be mentioned in an upcoming episode of Remnant Stew. So what's our question today, Leah?
Well, and I might send you a pair of cool socks.
All right.
So, okay, so Harbin Gould came up with this, and it's an easy question, though. What completely disgusting medical treatment that has been used since the Renaissance times can today be used to help some diabetic patients?
Ooh. That's an interesting question. I just saw the answer. That's why I went, ooh.
All right, folks. Thank you for listening. Check out our Facebook and Instagram pages at Remnant Stew Podcast. And if you have any ideas you would like to hear us cover in a future episode, you can email suggestions to us at staycurious@remnantstew.com.
Remnant Stew is created by me, Leah Lamp. Dr. Stephen Meeker and I research, write, and host each episode, along with commentary by Philip Sinquefield, who also produces our audio. Theme music is by Kevin MacLeod. Special thanks to Judy Meeker and Harbin Gould.
Well, now please hit the follow button so you won't miss an episode. Head on over to Apple Music and leave us a review. We love seeing those reviews. Share Remnant Stew with your friends, family, general practitioner, alchemist, and that witch doctor down the street. Until next time, remember to choose to be kind and always stay curious.